Welcome back to Visited by Voices. Today is kind of a special episode. What I'm looking to do is to bring the community together to help support something that would benefit all of us, not just for getting the product to the market that I think richly deserves to be out there, but it'll also help us to be part of something. Too often we're too passive in receiving our entertainment, and then we tend to bitch about what we're not receiving. This is a rare opportunity to take some charge to help some really creative people bring something right in our wheelhouse, right to our door. So I'd like to introduce some of the creative team behind Mask of the Devil. Mr. Rich, could you introduce yourself, sir?
Hello, I'm Richard Roundtree, and I'm the co-writer, director, and one of the producers of Mask of the Devil.
Mr. Matt.
Hey, I'm Matt Davies. I am a producer and co-writer of Mask of the Devil, and I also function as production manager on set. So I spend a lot of time chasing around, looking for receipts and working out who's been paid or not paid their travel.
We're also joined by Chris.
Hey everyone, I'm Chris Folser, DOP and one of the producers of Mask of the Devil.
And finally, but not least, Mr. Lee.
Hi, I'm Lee Wignall. I'm producer, editor, and sort of overall visual effects, and I draw things and whatnot. Yeah, I'm ready to go.
So for those horror fans out there, and in particular slasher fans, who might be interested in supporting your project on Kickstarter, what is the elevator pitch?
Okay, so the movie it starts off in West Africa in the 19th century. A British explorer, and he steals a tribal mask, which he either escapes or doesn't escape, whether you don't ever see. And then we flash forward to present day. And there's a young girl called Mary who takes a job at a kind of a low-rent pornography company to get some financial independence from her overbearing parents. And on her first day at the porn company, this mask shows up and kind of takes over one of the characters, who ends up going on this mad killing rampage through the porn company.
Excellent. So it sounds like to me, one of the things that we've always kind of assumed about a lot of our favorite slasher franchises, you guys are really embracing, which is the idea of the mask, the physical incarnation, is the villain in a serious sense. I think we always got the impression that Jason's mask or Michael Myers' mask was a character unto its own. And it sounds like you're really embracing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's kind of a pertinent thing in the news at the moment everywhere around the world with COVID and what have you. And I think Matt and I, when we were writing it, were quite interested in kind of the idea that, it kind of really, a mask covers most of your face. You don't really know what's underneath. You can pass people on the street who and you've got no idea it's them. So the way it conceals who you really are is something we're quite interested in.
Before we get into kind of your personal influences for this, let's go through the round table here and just let the audience know really what it is that drew you to want to do this, and where is your personal passion with this project. Let's start with Chris, and we'll go counterclockwise here.
Okay. So as a group, we've been together for, I guess it's 5 years now, right, guys? Something like that, maybe a bit more.
Yeah.
And I think our passion came out of a desire to want to do something creative. We've all got a creative streak through us. Some get to express that on a daily basis, some don't. And so we took that to start off with basically looking at like short films and things. So we've done 2 other features so far. One of them is named Dogged, which is a folk horror film. The other one is named Nefarious, which is a bit more, I guess, Rich, what would we call that? Kind of a more, it's gritty.
Like
it's home invasion. Right. That's exactly. So with Mask of the Devil, I think we're taking on a slightly different challenge. We're looking at the slasher, and we're taking tropes of that And I'm looking at this as a real opportunity to do things a bit more exciting visually, being the DOP and looking to kind of bring out some really exciting things. We've got some stuff going on, some different kind of stuff that Lee and I are going to work on particularly. Don't want to give any spoilers, Rich, so I'll let you go into that if you want to. But there's some really interesting stuff that we want to do that I think will come out of left field, really, for a slasher film at least. But it should be fairly familiar for most people. But yeah, when you're putting it in this context, that's kind of exciting for me. So yeah.
Well, I mean, what always draws us is we just really like working with each other. We get on so well. So on like a friendship level, we just it's not really work for us. I mean, we all sort of work hard at it, but it's just great turning up to set with these guys. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, I mean, we're all sort of born in and around the era that this is kind of not necessarily set in, but the sort of vibe we're sort of riffing on. So we've all kind of grown up with all that kind of style and feel. So it's just a chance to kind of do that sort of thing, because we're always doing things to sort of a kind of high definition level. And like me personally, I do a lot of promos for TV, so you always sort of work to a certain level, and we're always sort of doing 4K and 6K stuff. So it's going to be nice to do something that's just a bit more playful and just purposefully grime it up a bit. And so that's kind of my angle, purely from a visual sense.
So I think, yeah, for me, there's two pieces to it. I think there is a frustration with some of the horror content which is being put out. I think across the various streaming platforms I subscribe to, the first 15 minutes of a lot of films have been watched before I'm like, you had a great idea and you've just thrown it away in some way. So there's that drive to want to create something, almost to. I was going to say to put our money where our mouth is, but to put our Kickstarter backers' money where our mouth is, and really throw our all at a production and do the best we can do. And feeding into that is, having done the previous features, Dogged and Nefarious, you're always going to be most critical of your own work. So there's things we look back at and go, could have done that better. Could have done. I mean, Dogged. The first day of shooting, we had 3 location moves for the entire unit. That's a lesson learned. Not going to do that again. but there's, as Chris and Lee spoke about with the visuals, there's all these things where we go, okay, we can add something there. We can do something different. And as Rich and I have written each of the scripts, we've bared that sort of thing in mind. And also, you get better at writing, more compactly. There's things I would probably leave out of Dogged now if I wrote it again. I still love the film. It still stands on its own. But, there's a desire to do better, and you get to the end of each one, and there is a little bit of a, right, what's next? And also, what are the things we won't do? What are the things we want to do more of? So I think that's what really drives us on.
I mean, I think, these guys have kind of said it as much as anything else. We've got an amazing team of crew behind us, and everybody puts their all into everything they do, and it actually becomes a pleasure to work with everybody, because everybody puts so much effort and thought into what they're doing, that actually when we're planning everything out, it makes sure that as long as you plan everything properly, then everything kind of runs like clockwork a little bit. And it, again, like Matt said, kind of each time we do a different film project, whether it's a feature or short, it gets more and more cohesive. And I mean, people do look at me, but if there's ever any occasion when I don't have an answer, I look to one of these 3 to give the answer instead. I think it's a really exciting project for us, because I think particularly when we were writing it, it was there were the kind of story was born out of the fact that there's very similar kind of audience expectations, shall we say, with horror movies in general, as there is with the kind of world of porn. You've got this set of tropes or you know, scene order or whatever, and people are expecting, look, this is what I want to see, bang bang bang. We purposely tried to avoid that with the previous two movies and kind of shake things up a little bit, and that doesn't always go over, right? It doesn't. You know, the responses you get at film festivals where people are there because they want to see something original and something new, it has always been really fantastic. And then it goes out into the kind of wider circulation, and people don't necessarily always get it, or you know, they only want to see the same thing churned out over and over again. And so with this, we're kind of playing into that a little bit and saying, look, yeah, you know, you can have these certain tropes and you can have, you know, stuff done in a certain order, but we're going to mix it up and we're going to make it a bit more exciting and kind of give you something to think about a little bit as well.
Well, that's exciting to me. The thing is, I am a complete mark for horror in general, but certainly Golden Age slashers in particular, although I think there's a little bit of a renaissance right now. I think both Hellfest and Game Over, which I have a poster over my head, are both examples of elevating slasher to a whole different level. In one case, as far as just the sheer filmmaking, in another sense, the storytelling. So I think it's a great moment for you guys to get out there with this and show people not just your influences, but what you can bring to the table new as well.
This is the thing. I think I was always a little bit reluctant to kind of go anywhere near even a slasher idea before, because I felt like, and I think I've said in interviews before, like I didn't feel like we could bring anything new to it, and then we kind of stumbled upon this idea and kind of ran with it. And in a lot of ways, I think, you know, from my perspective, it was one of the easiest stories we've had to write, because I felt kind of really into it. You know, I fell into the characters' motivations and how it was all going to work a bit more easily, and having to think perhaps less about the structure because it was already so familiar, you know, having grown up watching kind of all of those movies, you know, from the video stores as a kid. There's something that feels very familiar about it, but also is kind of fresh in its ideas, I think.
So on that note, I want to go around the table again. Favorite slasher film? Start with Lee. Oh, no, Lee's giving me the face, meaning don't call me. So Matt.
Yeah.
Get back to you, Lee. You'll be last.
So I think for me it's and it's partly because it was probably the first slasher I saw, but Halloween always has a special place in my heart. You know, I think cast wise and just the story, it's so compact, and you know, I think it probably strikes the best balance between the, you know, is this a real person? Is there certainly the first movie? Is this a real person? Is there something supernatural to it? And it keeps you guessing in that way. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Halloween come on the TV or something like that and not sat down and watched it and enjoyed it as much as the first time I saw it. The sequels obviously go a little bit off piste, but yeah, well, the third one certainly. But yeah, that one always has a special place in my heart. You know, I'm a big classic Carpenter fan anyway, and like you said, you know, the mask element which we've adopted here. I know a lot of people have got a lot of time for the hockey mask, but that William Shatner face mask spray painted white with the eyes slightly more cut out. Yeah, they've not really done a huge amount to that stylistically, but it's so iconic and it's so threatening.
Well, I mean, they were the first, at least inside like the slasher genre, even nascent, because I mean there was slashers before Halloween. Whether you're talking about Your Own Nation's Peeping Tom or Psycho or Straight Jacket, or there's it exists. It actually goes all the way back to the 30s with a few of the real body count thrillers. But it's interesting because Halloween managed to put that mask on to create like the uncanny valley effect before anyone had that phrase. But that's exactly how it works. And I think that's an amazing, amazing thing. It's this guy doesn't look like he's quite real or quite alive or quite human, but it's subtle.
Yeah.
And it plays on you. And I think that's An amazing reason. Also, you hit upon it. Halloween works because Loomis should be insane.
Yeah.
Loomis should be dead wrong, and Michael Myers should not be the incarnation of Halloween evil. And that last scene where we realize he's right, and Laurie asks him, "Was that the boogeyman?" And the answer is really disconcerting, because the intellectual part of you wants to say, "Of course not. He's just a guy who escaped from an insane asylum." But the evidence now is in front of you that nope, something bigger.
Yeah.
And I think the legacy of that scene is really, it's unfortunate that the series couldn't toe that line any further, because after that point, there was never that careful of a identity to Michael Myers.
Yeah, every one of the sequels is the search for more money, and it's a shame. But that's something that a lot of sequels fall into, unfortunately.
They should have.
And I like some of them quite a lot, just to be fair.
Halloween 6, The Search for More Money.
And we'll re-release it in a different cut almost as many times as Blade Runner, just to make sure that you get the point. Chris, what's your favorite in the subgenre?
That's a tough one, because Matt's taken mine. You did mention Psycho, though, and I think that works for different reasons. Much older film.
Mm-hmm.
I found it really interesting. So I love that film, and I love what that is. It's set in a completely different era, and so has probably, I think, more obvious kind of cues in a way, because we get to where we are now, and we're so used to the tropes and things. Some of those are laid out very early on in that. You've got the blonde, beautiful woman. She turns up, then you've got the killer, and you've got the imagery of the knife and all those sort of tropes that you can associate with a slasher. So some of them are set up there, which is really great. I think one of the interesting things was that they remade it with Vince Vaughn in the.
I'm not sure I'd call that interesting.
Well, I think it was interesting to see that they gave up some money to do it, but it's a weird one that they did do something that was so iconic and tried to remake that film rather than, well, they did a sequel as well, but that for me it stood the test of time. It's got some really stark images in it. I remember the scene in the shower, the scene with the little cut hole in the room where he's looking through, the one with the birds in it, the owl, that always stuck with me as well. So I like that for the reason that there's almost like some pictures you can take from it, some stills right there in the film for you. So that for me is one of my favorites as well.
Do you want to know a fun fact? That when he does the little look through the eyeglass, the spy hole there, the painting is a classic painting, and it's called Women Bathing Watched by Voyeurs.
And nice. You can't get more Hitchcock than that.
Yeah. Good evening.
Lee, are we ready?
So again, it will always go down to Halloween. I was trying to think of anything a bit more clever, but it's always going to boil down to that. But one obscure one I remember, and I don't remember too much about what happened. It's mainly just again the visuals and the sounds I remember. But Maniac, the one where that guy goes
Joe
around.
Spinell.
Yeah.
And
it's one of the. I always remember the trailer for it, because there's a bit where he goes up to the car and just shoots in through the car windscreen, and just the blood, just a colossal mess. And it was the thing that kind of got me into that film. And I don't think the film's quite as good as what the trailer was, but I still liked it.
Have you seen the Elijah Wood version, the remake?
Not yet. No.
Really enjoyed it.
It's definitely a different movie, but it's good.
Yeah, he's really good at those roles, though. Those really weird, creepy roles.
Well, I think that's an incredible choice, to be honest with you, because I love the grindhouse side of things too. So, Rich, what would you say your favorite slasher, besides, Mask of the Devil, which will overtake it in all of our cases, right?
A Nightmare on Elm Street, for me, is kind of one that I saw when I was probably 8 or 9 years old, and absolutely terrified me. And it really stands up still. I before Christmas, I sat down over a few nights and I watched all of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies again, and they do get progressively kind of worse, and then slightly better, and then slightly worse again. But the original one is so original, and it's, without having a mask, you've kind of got the mask there again, right? Because you can't, his facial disfigurements from the fire that you learn later on is kind of conceal, the fact that there was once a human underneath or whatever. It ups the ante with kind of having the 4 knives, not just one knife, and again, like you guys said with some of yours, some of the visuals in it are just so stark and memorable, with the friend in the body bag in the hallway with the blood trail going after her, the scene on the bed with the blood coming up out of the bed, and
the one where he's running down the alleyway as well with his arms, like the really long arms.
and when he comes through the wall, with the kind of
that it's amazing that no one has tried to do that image since that, huh?
Mm-hmm.
They haven't ripped that off in every trailer for every horror film since.
It's kind of one of those things where you're like, it's not original anymore. It wasn't original after the first time or whatever. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's actually still scary. Well, like I find it still scary, and I don't know if that harks back to having watched it as a far too young child, but there's something about it for me, just the whole atmosphere, the kind of darkened boiler rooms and the sounds of the scratching and everything all the way through. And it's, I mean, obviously, the more you see of Freddy in the sequels as it goes on, it kind of it ebbs and flows. The third one is great. I really enjoyed the third one, and
you're gonna get me in trouble with the audience again, because I only like the first film, The Nightmare on Elm Street, but I think that one is a masterpiece. Yeah, I think the whole series after that is regrettable. Kind of like the second film, although not really. But the third film introduced the humor, and the humor ultimately took horror in a direction I did not like for a decade.
Yeah, you see, it's interesting because I have a very different relationship with Nightmare on Elm Street. I love it, but by the time I saw it, I was quite a bit older. So the first time I saw it was when it premiered on network television in the UK, which must have been the early 90s. And Freddy Krueger was almost like a pop culture reference by then. So, I'd been exposed to it and was aware of it so much that I think a lot of the power of the film was lost. Because I was like, I've seen this in magazines and newspapers, and people have spoken to me about it. And it ended up wrecking it for me, which is a shame because it is a great film.
I really wish it had been a standalone film. I really wish it had been. Because, yes, Freddy wouldn't be the icon he is today, but he'd be an immensely powerful figure in the cult world.
Yeah.
I will say this. I think there's a film that came out much later in the decade that was trying to make some of the Nightmare sequel money that I think is better by no small amount of distance of any of the sequels, which is Bad Dreams, which if you haven't seen, it's like the Nightmare on Elm Street sequel that should have happened instead.
Oh, okay.
Has the great Richard Lynch as the villain. It's a great film. Also has Jennifer Rubin in it, who is in the third film anyway. So,
okay,
but it's pretty great. But let's get back to Mask of the Devil properly for a second here. I want to talk about the campaign. So, why crowdfunding, and where do you stand, and what is at this point the goal remaining, and why should people, get us over that line?
I think to answer the question about kind of why crowdfunding is, we are obviously, in such a kind of a difficult position in the world at the moment where, funding cuts to any kind of arts are, taking place pretty much everywhere. And I'm sure it's the same in the States, but in the UK, you've kind of got two options. You can get, public funding, which is immensely hard to get. They particularly don't want anything, kind of genre related. They want kind of whimsical period drama, things like that, which, don't really have an audience, but, win awards, BAFTAs and Oscars and whatever. And so that getting that money is kind of difficult. And unfortunately, with the kind of private investment, it's a really difficult time to be trying to enter that world. I think people are pretty reluctant to put their money to anything vast sums, especially very canny kind of business people who might not necessarily have a track record in it. We've made some good contacts at different production companies over the years, previous movies, but I think if we were going to go that route, it was going to take much longer to get it off the ground. And I think we having had the year that we've all just had, we really wanted to get out and kind of make something this year that is going to be ready by this kind of time next year, that we can put out there, and we'll lift spirits of everybody, because the whole idea of the Kickstarter backing is that you get to follow along in the journey with us. Every time we're shooting, we'll send pictures, we'll send updates, and makeup tests and whatever else, and just kind of information around to people to kind of keep you in the loop, because if you're putting your money up, you're part of the team, right? So it made sense. We've done it twice before. We built up a pretty good fan base, and thankfully, hopefully, I think we're like 98% funded now, and we got 3 days to go. So fingers crossed we'll be able to do this, and anybody who jumps on board can follow us along and kind of come on the journey with us.
And guys, the one thing that is always going to be true about the horror genre is that the most powerful voice in the horror genre is always the fans. So when a whole lot of people went to go see Halloween, which seems to be this group's favorite slasher film in general, it led to an entire wave of films that for the next 6 years was so constant at the cinemas. And then it once the VCR generation started, these movies got a second life, and today they've been found again through streaming services like Shudder, whereas older slasher films and older horror films are getting another renewed interest. But it all started because fans showed up. So this is your time to show up. I guess that's my message to everyone watching is show up. Even the price of a cup of coffee is going to help these guys. And if it's a Starbucks cup of coffee, it might get them over the line anyway, because it's that expensive.
Absolutely.
But we can't just take for granted that the stuff we love is going to come just because we want it to be out there. The entire entertainment landscape is changing. It looks like physical media's days are waning. We all know this. Don't you want to, at this point, start to take charge and take the power away from those people who will never meet us and really don't care about anything but the money? Sometimes the quest for money can lead to great things, But in this case, if we want our voices heard, we have to be a little bit more active. So I'm going to encourage everyone to please go to the Kickstarter page, kick in what you can. Don't put yourself in the poorhouse to make this film, but I'm sure you can give something. And if everyone gives something, we could end up with the next Halloween here. Or the next Plan 9 from Outer Space. You don't know. But the truth is, I'd rather roll the die and maybe be part of something very special. Because I know if we don't, we end up, with The Turning or Underwater or any of those films that came out at the beginning of this year. And I'd just rather these guys make something they're passionate about than a bunch of people in Hollywood make something they really don't care about. All right, guys, let's go around the table. Any final words, as well as how people can continue to follow you so they can keep abreast of everything you've got coming, Mask of the Devil and beyond? Chris.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Lorne, for giving us a chance to speak to everyone in the community. I want to just express, it is a team effort here. Lee, Rich, Davies, and I are this is our passion. And, if you do manage to kick something into the Kickstarter, we'll appreciate it, certainly. But it really does spur us on to want to do these things more often. So we're always thinking of you guys out there. I know we don't get to see your faces, but we see your names, and we do appreciate you kicking in. So, yeah, appreciate that. You can follow me at Milo Hicks, but I'll let Rich tell us about Mask of the Devil and Ash Mountain Films. But anyway, that's me.
Yep. So the Kickstarter, if you go to kickstarter.com and then just type in Mask of the Devil, that will come up with the most popular horror movie on there, and have been for kind of most of the campaign, which is great. We are on Twitter. I'm at r_Roundtree, and then we've got at Ash Mountain Film, and then we're at Mask of the Devil, but with a 1 instead of an I, because someone had already taken that. And then it's at Dogged the Movie and at Nefarious Movie for the previous ones. And then on Facebook, we're at Ash Mountain Film. And there's going to be a Facebook page for Mask of the Devil fairly shortly as well. But if you follow Ash Mountain Film, you'll find that on there. And just to echo what Chris said, thank you very much for having us on, and thank you everybody for listening. And we are true horror fans, and we're making movies that we want to watch ourselves, right? Exactly like Lorne said, we're not doing it, for the money, and I think that's kind of quite a special thing in this day and age. So support us if you can.
Awesome. League, where can people follow you?
Mainly I've got a website, wignallpro.com, so that's wignall.pro.com. So I'm just the other sort of production side of Ash Mountain Films, so that's where you can find me. My wife, who also art directs, she's on there as well. I'd say go to that. Other than that, just everything that these guys have already said. Again, thanks, Lorne, for having us. This is muchly appreciated. And again, thank you to anyone watching this and who's shown your support. That's amazing.
And Matt?
So you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at The First Heretic. Again, echoing what these guys have said, thank you for allowing us to share your platform. And one of the things I would say about the Kickstarter is, I've backed a few things on Kickstarter now. As I look around the room I've sat in, I can see various books and so on I've backed. Yet something we do is once the Kickstarter's funded, we do stay engaged. We're not one of these outfits that gets the money and then disappears. So you will see regular updates on Kickstarter itself and through our socials as well. So we really try and make the backers part of it and keep them in. So that's, I guess, the other thing I would push. We embrace the crowd element of Kickstarter, whereas potentially some other projects aren't as great at that. So people who've had experiences in the past like that, that's not what you'll get from us. You really will be in the journey with us.
Whether you want to be or not.
Yes, you may end up putting us on your junk filter.
Well, to be completely fair, I think everyone's on my junk filter. So just to sweeten the deal a little bit, for anyone in my community out there that joins the Kickstarter at any tier, I want you to reach out to me at visitedbyvoices@gmail.com, and you are going to get an ebook from me, a previously traditionally published title, professionally edited and done. I will send that to you as soon as you send me just a screenshot saying that you are now a Kickstarter of this project. It's not much, but it's something I can give to you, and I'm passionate enough to feel that, it's time we get active. We've talked about horror a lot. Now let's help make some.